and write out and wait around and wait Carolyn over here. We'll come and get it and submit it. We'll try to get through as many questions as we can this afternoon, but our time is limited. So, my name is Rick Beshen. Welcome. On behalf of the Oregon Area Progressives, we're a local collaborative group committed to organize and support the progressive policy agenda. Our mission is to build and strengthen grassroots organizations and educate by educating and empowering people to act on local, state, and national issues. Today we are sponsoring a forum for candidates for Dane County Executive. I understand that Eileen Bruskowitz is here. Someone mentioned that she is. I think the gentleman back here mentioned that she is here and will be seated soon. I'd like to start by thanking the bank, State Bank of Cross Plains, for allowing us to use the community room and for providing the refreshments as the pens. This bank has been really generous to us over the years in providing this space, and very gracious, and appreciate their civic mindedness and community spirit. Next, thank you to the candidates who are here with us today. And finally, thank you to our attendees for your interest in this important county race, and a special thanks to those of you who also brought non-perishable food items or made a monetary contribution to the Oregon Food Pantry. The boxes are in the back. 6 candidates have completed the necessary requirements to appear on the February 15th primary election ballot. The top 2 vote getters will be on the April 5th general election ballot. All 6 candidates were invited to participate. We have with us today Joe Parisi, Scott McDonald, Joe Winnicky, Zach Brandon, and Eileen Bruskowitz. Spencer Zimmerman was also contacted multiple times by email and telephone and didn't respond. He regret his absence. Mr. Brandon here has graciously appeared in spite of a previous commitment regarding Martin Luther King Day activities with his church. He'll be leaving early. We appreciate you making time for as much as you can when you're leaving to go, understand. In order to cover as many topics as possible and offer equal courtesy to each candidate, we have seated the candidates by random drawing. Each will have approximately 3 minutes to make an opening statement, then questions from the audience will be read by Bart Bean, our moderator, OAP member, in rotating sequence. In other words, we will ask number 1, 2, 3, 4 to go in the same order each time. Candidates, we ask that you keep your answers to approximately 1 minute so we might get to as many audience questions as possible. And we plan to end around 4 p.m. At the latest. Our moderator will decide when to end questioning. Eileen Bruskowitz, welcome. Thank you for coming. And at the end, Barb will decide when the questioning needs to end. She'll watch the clock. And at the end, each of you will have a couple of minutes, 2 minutes approximately, to make a closing statement. There are no rebuttals from one to another. It's not a debate. We're just asking questions and getting responses. Audience members, you received a blue paper when you entered, write your questions on. Many of you have already submitted your questions. If you have more during the program, wave down Arlene once again. And Barb will be choosing questions from each topic area. We do ask you to be respectful and not interject commentary. It's not a place. The questions will be read by the moderator. The answers will come from the candidates, and that's what we want to do. Finally, before the candidates give their opening remarks, I offer a brief outline of the county executive's responsibilities. Now look this up. This is a heck of a job. First of all, I have to wonder. I would never want to. You're in control of health and human services. Yeah, public works such as roads and other infrastructure, public safety and criminal justice, conservation and economic development, culture, education, recreation. It's not just roads and parks. There's the interoperable radio system, sustainable energy, the Land and Water Legacy Fund, the land use plan, the early childhood and alcohol abuse reduction initiatives, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is not a job for the faint hearted. And I wish you all luck in the campaign. I'm going to turn it over to Barb, and she will ask you to start your opening statements.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're going to start some signals about timing. So you have an idea of when it's time to cut it off. So we'll start with Ms. Scott.
And then we have 3 minutes for this one.
Right.
Just want to make sure. Okay. Well, I'm Scott McDonald. I'm chairman of the Dane County Board. I love Dane County because of the values we share. Respect, fairness, protecting those who are less vulnerable. These values are what make Dane County special and why my wife and I decided to settle down here and raise our 2 daughters. Right now, Scott Walker's agenda clearly favors the rich and powerful. So that's why, more than ever, we need someone, we need progressive leadership to stand up for the rest of us. When I was 14, my father died, and those were some of the hardest years of my life for both me and my mom. And I know there are a lot of families here in Dane County who are also going through hard times. That's why in the county budget, I stood up for those who are most vulnerable. We successfully fought to increase staff at the county domestic violence shelter, to expand transportation and in-home care for seniors, and provide the homeless with treatment for substance abuse. In fact, my wife Megan works with homeless families every day at the Tenant Resource Center. And while Scott Walker wants to strip away workers' rights so he can unilaterally fire them, the county is just the opposite. We work with our unions. I respect worker rights and want to keep people at work, and that's why I negotiated a long-term contract with our workers that will save county taxpayers over $1 million a year. As a son of public servants, I know that our hardworking public employees are an asset. They should be treated fairly and not as a liability. The contrast is just a start when it comes to equal rights for all our families. Scott Walker and his allies in the legislature have already said they want to roll back equal benefits for domestic partner rights. And here in Dane County, I created the first county domestic partner registry in the state. And one of the proudest moments of my tenure in county service was when my friends Tamara and Renee were one of the first couples to sign up for that registry. And I will ensure that Tamara and Renee are able to keep their rights that we've worked so hard to provide them. In this political climate, our values are at risk. They need to be defended, and that's why I'm running for county executive.
I'm Zach Brandon. I'm running for county executive because I believe that Dane County has to get into job creation in a real meaningful way. I am an entrepreneur, a manager, an innovator. I have led the Department of Commerce, almost 400 employees and a $400 million budget. I've started 3 businesses on my own. I moved to Dane County 10 years ago to start a business and to raise a family. And I have 3 children, and I love this place just like the rest of us for all the things that are special about it. But one of the things that we are missing is a real job creation, a real activity to get into economic development in a meaningful way. And that is what is in front of us right now. And many times we sit and we look at where we are and we think that Dane County is recession proof, but it's not. Family income goes down 9%. Poverty is up. 1 in 10 children live in poverty today. Unemployment is up. It's time that we get serious about economic development. It's time that we get serious about telling our children that there's no failure in entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurship is a way and a path that they should pursue. If you think about the marquee companies that made this state great, Harley-Davidson, Briggs & Stratton, Marinette Marine, Oshkosh Truck, Kohler, S.C. Johnson, Johnson Controls. They're all either named after the place in which they were founded or the people that founded it, because our heritage, our history in the state is about entrepreneurship. But we've gotten away from that. We've gotten away from being able to tell our young people that it's okay. We need to create jobs for the most vulnerable among us, for working families, for a single mother like mine, who I watched every night struggle to pay the bills. So this is real to me. This is, I do this not because it's a good talking point. I've always stood for this ever since I spent 3 terms on the city council. I believe in these things, and I know that we have to do it. We have to get serious about it, and that's why I'm running for Dane County Executive.
Hi everyone, I'm Joe Parisi. Thank you so much for having this forum today. I really appreciate it. Thank you for showing up. It's great to see participation like this in the middle of winter. January, that's one of the things that's so great about Dane County. People here really do care. Many of you may know me from my service as county clerk, a position I served in for 8 years, or from my service from the past 6 years as a member of the Wisconsin State Legislature. In opening today, I'd like to briefly tell you a little bit about my personal history, who I am, because who I am and where I came from is why I'm running for this office. When I was 17, I dropped out of high school. Wasn't the best choice I ever made. I went home and told my parents, and they said, okay, if you're not going to be in high school, you're going to pay rent. So before you knew it, I was working 2 minimum wage jobs, just trying to get by, and I was stuck. I realized I'd made a mistake, but it was too late. My class had passed me by, and I felt like there was nowhere to turn. So people encouraged me to still forge ahead. They said, why don't you go look at getting a GED? So I went to downtown Madison, found a place that helped people get their GED. I studied, I worked hard, I passed that GED, I got a high school diploma, and that gave me the confidence to take the next step. I was given a shot at METC. So for a kid who never thought he was smart enough to finish high school, going to college was a little scary, but I tried it, and I was successful. And I worked full-time, went to school part-time for a number of years, took all my classes, took college transfer courses, eventually earned enough credits to transfer to the University of Wisconsin as a junior. And when I was 30 years old, I graduated from the UW of Madison with a degree in sociology. So I sit before you today, a graduate of the University of Wisconsin, a member of the Wisconsin State Legislature, and now a candidate for Dane County Executive, all because people believed in me, and the resources I needed to turn my life around when I needed that were there. Those resources are under threat today. And I want to make sure that those resources that have helped me so much are available for our children. And that's why I'm running for Dane County Executive. We need to focus on job creation in Dane County. As County Executive, I'll create an Office of Economic Development to help ensure that we move forward, that our businesses, our university and tech colleges, and our workforce are working in conjunction to move forward. I'll work for clean energy jobs. I'll work to protect human services and make sure that the most vulnerable are protected. I had experience to get the job done. I've been an administrator in county government. I'm in the state legislature. I'm ready to stand up for Dane County. I look forward to discussing these issues today, and I hope I can earn your support. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. My name is Joe Winnicky, and I have had the pleasure in the past of representing people in the Oregon area for 16 years as a member of the state legislature. I also grew up about 4 miles down County Elm on Went Road, went to a one-room schoolhouse when my twin brother and I were in the first grade. The second grade, one kid was held back and one kid moved in. We had 4, it was the biggest class in the school. My parents got divorced when I was 9 years old. We moved to Verona. My mother had never worked outside the home. She did not have a driver's license, and we grew up poor. Paid my own way through the University of Wisconsin, worked at a mobile gas station for 14 years, got elected to city council in Verona when I was still in college. And all of that matters because all of us, these are all good people in this race, but who we are, where we come from, what our values are, and what our experience is matters. Now, I would ask all of you to look at this race as if you were making the personal hiring decision and you were looking at 6 resumes. My resume will look pretty darn good. I've got 20 years of experience in the public sector. I was a member of the city council in Verona. I was a member of the state assembly. I was a member of the state senate. I was the division administrator for the state of Wisconsin, bargaining labor contracts. I also was a very successful chair of the state of Wisconsin's Democratic Party. I served 6 years as the executive director of a construction labor management group. I worked 6 years as the political director for a major private labor union, and I did pump gas for 8 years and worked as a researcher for a tax organization. Experience does matter because this county is at a crossroads. In my lifetime, I'm 54 years old, I've never seen such an assault on the people of this area being focused by state government. And you know, they didn't campaign on this. This all kind of happened after the election. But what's happening is not good. It is not good. Our quality of life is at risk. Public employees, public servants, as I like to call them, make up as much as 35% of the population in this county when you add spouses and children. That's 150,000 people. You know what's going to happen if they cut the salaries by 15 to 17%, as I predict this governor will in the coming weeks? It's not just the public sector that's going to get hurt. It's the hardware store, it's the shopping center, it's everywhere else. We can either stand up and challenge these issues, or we can sit back and watch our way of life crumble. I, for one, will want to fight. Thank you all very much.
Hi, thank you very much for having us at this forum today. My name is Eileen Bruskowitz, and for background, I earned my bachelor's degree in sociology I studied, I became a registered nurse and worked at UCLA and then at the University of Wisconsin Hospital and Clinics. During that time, I opened a business in downtown Madison, residential rental property management. And I have to say that for the last 30 years, I've had a successful business providing safe and affordable housing for college students and people that live downtown. You know, I became interested in politics in 1992 as a result of some ordinances that were being passed by the Madison City Council. And I got to know Brenda Conkle, who I see is taping us today. Brenda and I worked together to bridge the rift between landlords and tenants, and we started the housing mediation service that still exists in the small claims court. The idea of having winners and losers when you have conflict is not a good outcome, and that is not an outcome that I want to see now or in the future for Dane County. I was elected to the county board in the year 2000. The district that I represent votes the Democratic ticket almost all the time, and they've elected me to the county board as their representative 6 times now. My district includes the village of Waunakee, the town of Westport, and just before that, before redistricting, I also represented the villages of Shorewood Hills and Maple Bluff and part of the city of Middleton. That experience has given me a lot of experience with local governments and helping them to work together. Most recently, I worked with 45 municipalities and getting a referendum on the ballot. Should we have an increase in our sales tax for commuter rail? The people had a chance to vote, and they said, over 70% said no, they didn't want sales taxes to be used for commuter rail. I think taxes are too high. The county portion of the taxes have gone up 10% in the last 2 years. I find that completely unacceptable. I voted against that. We have people that are not able to pay their real estate taxes. We have people that are out of work, that are underemployed. We need jobs in Dane County. I would start a private-public economic development corporation. We need businesses to begin. I've lived in Dane County for 31 years. It's home, and I want to make it a good place for all of us to live and work. Thank you.
My family owned a small business in Monona for 65 years. The local, state, and federal regulations to maintain or expand a business are burdensome. What will you do to help small businesses to start up or expand and prosper?
One of the reasons why I ran for the city council in the first place was because when I first moved here to start a business, we ran into so much obstacles in the city council. In fact, we spent $20,000 in legal fees to get a $300 liquor fee. We had to erect a wall in the middle of the building for no reason other than an alderman or a city councilman decided that was the fancy that he had at the time. Those are the things that prompted me into action. After I ran, I sat on a committee called the Economic Development Commission that was almost done away with. Wrote a report in 2004 about how to make Madison more business friendly. I think in many of the changes you've seen in the Madison City Council were products of the effort I did. I went to, as an appointee, I went to the Department of Commerce and was both a regulator and a job creator. And we think of the major headlines that have occurred in this state, whether it's been small businesses like W Solar and 5N Plus and Cardinal Glass establishing green energy solar plants in Dane County, or the saving of Harley Davidson in our state, or Mercury Marine. I was the center of all of those. I was the state point person on every one of those projects. So I know what it takes to be an entrepreneur. I know what it takes to be a business owner. I know what it takes to be a job creator. And whenever I make a decision, I understand that you have to balance that with both the needs of the community and the needs of small business.
One of the first things I pledged to do as the next county executive is create an Office of Economic Development within the county executive's office. This office would work with our municipalities, with businesses, and the workforce, and our technology university throughout the region. We can no longer look at artificial barriers such as, McFarland's here, Middleton's here, what's good for McFarland is bad for Oregon. what's good for McFarland is good for Oregon, is good for Madison. We have to realize that we're all in this together. We need to take a regional approach. If we find that there are burdensome regulations, we should look at those. At the same time, a lot of times regulations are in place to protect the environment, to protect our neighborhood. So we can't just do, for example, what our current governor is proposing to do, which is just put all regulation aside, that all regulation equals bad. We can't take that approach. Let's take a thoughtful approach, a regional and cooperative approach, work with businesses, work with our communities, work with our workforce to find out what the best solutions are for all of our issues facing local businesses. Thank you.
Specifically to the question, it's likely that what the county would be involved in that case, would be of a very limited nature, to be honest. There's federal regulations, there's state regulations, there's city regulations, there's county regulations. But the reality is that the major area where Dane County currently deals with regulatory functions is on environmental protection with the DNR, it's on zoning, and it's on land use. One area where the county needs to do a better job is simply to make sure that we make sound decisions on land use, we make sound decisions on zoning, but we also must remember that those decisions are not in a vacuum. They have to be done on a timely basis. When you start spending months and years, as I've seen in some cases, to try and get a good idea passed, that's just way too long, and I'm going to fix that.
I sit on the zoning committee right now, and I have watched similar situations take place almost at every meeting, where you have a business owner that wants to make an improvement, wants to expand their small business. Most recently is a fellow who actually remodels cars and does this, antique cars, and sends them all over the world. He wanted to change his zoning so he could expand his business. He was not permitted to because the majority on the zoning committee did not want to see that expansion there, even though it was Zone C2. If elected, I will work to rewrite the zoning code. The city of Madison has just rewritten theirs. We have an archaic code. It needs to be brought up to date. We need an executive that has a real friendly attitude towards business, not one that is judgmental and is trying to stop businesses from coming here. The Public-Private Economic Development Corporation would also be focused on Dane County. All of the surrounding counties have these entities. We don't, and we need one. But we have to change the rules so we can work.
It's always kind of be tough being the last one to answer one of these questions, but I will say that as county executive, I agree that we need to make sure that any regulations that are onerous on small business owners, we need to take a hard look at them and make sure that they actually provide a benefit. Oftentimes we see examples where in the rural areas, which is what we have more control over with partnership with the towns, it's often the neighbors who are the ones upset about an expansion of a business because the zoning may not support that. Of course, they have their own investments in their own homes that they're trying to protect as well. So we need to respect everybody's property rights, and I think that's an important tenet. But one of the things I've worked on as county board chairman is to try to help our farmers stay in farming. And we've worked hard to say, let's try to bring their farm goods that they're producing into our local supermarkets. And we've worked closely with Thrive to try to make sure, and the chamber, to bring the products locally into our own local supermarkets instead of just bringing them all in from out of state. And I think that helps to support the farm economy and helps local grocery stores as well. And I'm getting my warning, so that'll be it.
What is your plan to address the growing county debt?
Actually, Dane County's debt compared to other regions of other units of government is not out of hand. We just got a favorable comments from the bond rating agency. Everyone has debt. You can think of government like you think of your home budget. You don't pay for your home out of pocket. You take out a mortgage. Most people don't pay. A lot of people don't pay for their cars out of pocket. You take out a mortgage. You pay it monthly. Your groceries, you pay as you go. You usually don't take out a loan. Hopefully, you pay for your groceries. It's a similar situation in county, state, and any level of government. There are certain projects that you bond for, you take out loans, such as capital purchases, could be for land, buildings, etc. You pay those off monthly. It's the responsible thing to do. There are other pieces that you pay as you go. That's the operating budget. And so again, I think County Executive Falk has done a good job managing that. The bond rating agency agrees, and so I guess I would not completely agree with the tenant that there's no question that there's a problem with that level. Thank you.
I'm not as concerned about the level of county debt as I am about the level of our general fund reserves in Dane County. Dane County has a $500 million budget, and if you look at it in a very nice way, you might argue we have as much as $3 or $3.5 million in reserve. I think that is wrong. I think it leads to big trouble. And in fact, we've been using stewardship dollars to actually take and come in to use for one-time expenditures and bonding for all debt. And I just think that is a prescription for a disaster. Madison, for example, has a much, much higher general fund reserve. I personally believe that what we need to do is over 5-6 years even, try and add a few $1 million a year back into that general fund reserve so that we have a decent amount of funding. It's just like anything else. If you were in a business or in a private sector, if you got reserves at, at 1/4% or something in your budget, you're in trouble.
Wisconsin has the highest debt per capita, per person in the whole country. We even beat California. We are buried in debt. The county budget has been following the state and the federal government in assuming more and more debt. We can't keep doing that. Each time we borrow money, we reduce the amount of money, we reduce the amount of money that we have to pay for the services that all of us really want. We lost our AAA bond rating. It may be getting better, but we don't have it back. I would limit land purchases to connectivity between parcels that the county already owns. We don't need to buy any more farms. We have a structural deficit because we've been playing tricks with the budget. If I was county executive, I would make sure to have an open, honest presentation of the budget so people actually know the kinds of activities that have been going on. We can't keep doing that.
Well, let me just echo, I agree with what Joe Parisi said. The county debt is actually low compared to what the rating agencies have said. It's not a problem, so I don't agree with that premise. And I would say that it's interesting to hear some of my friends from the state talk about budgeting. I would never trade the county budget for the state budget. What they do with the state budget would make all of you blush compared to what we do with the county. We budget very responsibly. We do not raid the transportation fund. We do not take the tobacco securitization and sell it for half of what it's worth. We do have a low general fund right now, but that's going back up. And the reason it's fairly low is it's hard to tax people to build a reserve fund when they're hurting. And so we'll build back our reserve fund, and we're going to do it this year. We have the county board added $1 million to our reserve. The sales tax is looking strong. We'll have another $1 million, and we will build that back. But I have, as county board chair, tried to keep the levy low. We have continued to invest in things like parks, like Lyman Anderson Farm, that is going to provide a southern park here for Oregon. I think those are important. Those improve the quality of our life. I don't think you stop investing in them even when times are tough.
I'm the only candidate who's built a reputation as a budget watchdog. All three newspapers in Madison, State Journal, Cap Times, and Dismiss have all been attorney from a budget watchdog, a budget hawk. Because that's what I did when I was on the city council. I paid attention to the bottom line. And while there are certainly things we can do differently at the county level as far as borrowing, one of the most egregious things that we have to stop is borrowing for operating costs. The city is no different. Most governments are no different. I ended that practice at the city level. I'll do it at the county level. The idea that you would borrow, as Joe Parisi said, you borrow to buy a house, you borrow to buy a car, because those have a lifespan of 20, 30 years, a lifespan of 5 to 7 years. But when you're borrowing to paint curbs, or you're borrowing for computers, for things that don't have lifespans of 10 to 20 years, the meaningful life of the product ends but you continue to pay for it, and you pay with interest. And that's a real problem. For every $1 million you borrow, you pay back $1.4 million. These are drained on our resources, these are drained on the vital services that we need to provide, and that facts will end up being.
All of you are well known for your advocacy of important progressive values, but the county exec job is an administrative management position. What management experience do you have that would benefit you in the county?
Well, I have been the chair of the state Democratic Party, and I can assure you at times when election time, we are staffing multi-million-dollar budgets on a regular basis. I was also recently the division administrator for the Office of Employment Relations dealing with state budget contracts. Got them done, had a good relationship with our unions, and then some guy from Wausau screwed everything up. You know, I've been around a long time. I was the executive director of the Construction Labor Management Council, but I think what's important here is that I think I'm unique in this race in that I have a lot of private and public sector experience, and right now we need somebody in this state to take on what's going on and about to go on in Madison, and I think I'm the best choice to do just that.
Well, my experience owning rental property has given me quite a bit of management experience, especially when most of the tenants that we had were college-aged and didn't really have a whole lot of experience in renting, so they needed some guidance. My experience has not been in big company management. It's been management with people. As a nurse, I was a head nurse for a while. It is in establishing relationships and working through problems. I think that's my greatest strength. I've been around the county for 11 years, and I have a very good feel for the players, the nuts and bolts, how things work there, and I think if given the opportunity, I'd be able to make the kinds of changes that I think the public deserves. To be honest and open and communicate exactly what it is that our county is headed for. And to be very honest, that is the most important thing to me, and that's what I would bring. Thank you.
Well, I have been county board chair for the last 5 years, and it is a department that I manage and employees that I supervise. And I was county executive for a whopping 2 weeks. And I'm not going to claim that as experience as being county executive, but I will tell you when I was there, it wasn't really that different as far as except for that you have to manage a lot more personnel problems than you would as chair of the county board. But the issues are the same. I worked through the 4-year contracts for our county employees. I knew all those issues. It really wasn't that different. You have to know county government inside and out to be effective. You have to know the mayors and the village presidents. You have to know what their interests are. That's how I was able to get the interoperable radio agreement through the county board and then through the cities and villages. That's going to protect people when there's an emergency, and you have to be able to know people. You need to be able to negotiate well, and that's what I'm good at, and that's what the job really entails.
There's 2 types of management. There's direct oversight, and then there's general oversight. And I'm the only person on the board that's had direct oversight of a budget that's $400 million, 400 employees, because I was the Deputy Secretary of Commerce, and the way state agencies are set up is that the Deputy Secretary operates as the internal chief operating officer. So I dealt daily with human resources issues, with we had layoffs and furloughs, and we had a 10% budget cut. Part of commerce was dealt with the construction industry, which was hard hit by this last economic downturn, losing 30% of our revenue. So I tackle those issues on a day-to-day basis. I also was a small business owner. I raised $2 million from the owners of the Yankees to start my business. As somebody didn't know that, I went out and beat the pavement and found that money. But as far as general oversight, which is generally what you're hearing about here, I've been met at the city council, direct with indirect oversight of the budget, the overture board, ANSM, and the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission, which all has a multi-million-dollar budget. But the point to really drive home is that I'm the only person that has direct oversight of $100+ million budget, $400 million in 2 years.
I'm the only candidate sitting before you with direct experience as an administrator within county government, where I served as Dane County clerk for 8 years. I ran a department, I put together and proposed a budget, and ran my department within that budget. I also worked with the 60+ municipalities within the county to run elections, so my administrative duties were inside the building, and outside of the building. For the last 2 of my 3 terms in the state legislature, I was elected to serve a position 2 terms ago referred to as minority whip, and then when we became the majority, I became the majority whip. This is an oversight and an administrative position within the legislative body, and I also served as the chair of the Corrections Committee, which oversaw the Department of Corrections, which has a biennial $1.2 billion budget. So I think I bring a unique and vital skill set to the table, experience within county government, experience within state government, and I believe the next county executive is going to have to be comfortable working within the county and being able to maneuver in state government because of the challenges we face there.
And the question is, do you approve of the unelected RTA board?
The answer is no. I worked very hard to give a voice to the people of Dane County to be able to vote on the issue of whether we should form an RTA. The chairman of the county board would not let my resolution move forward. So we never had an opportunity to vote on whether we should even form an RTA. Once the RTA was established, I worked with the 45 communities to get that referendum question on their ballot so that the people would have a chance to speak. I do not believe that the RTA was passed with good intentions. I think it was passed to create the circumstances so that an RTA could operate without accountability to the public, which I found very disturbing. Does not include roads, does not include referendum for bonding. This is an entity that is has a lot of power, but with very little oversight.
This is an issue I dealt with also on the same on. I'm actually very proud of the county board under my leadership creating the Regional Transit Authority. We have to have a regional approach to transit. We have 60,000 people who are going to move here in the next 10 years. Think about what that's going to do to University Avenue, East Wash, to all the arterials that we rely on, Stoughton Road. We have to have a plan for that, and I'm proud of it. I will say that I do believe it was very important to me and those who voted for the RTA that there be a referendum component in it, and that a plan that you can read and decide whether you like it, you put before the voters. And that's what they're working on now. I trust the voters to make a decision. If they don't like certain elements of it, they'll vote that way. But we need to actually have a plan that talks about buses, that talks about everything that would go into a transit system, paratransit, and that was not included in some of the earlier referendums. And I think we will get a referendum before there's any sales tax. So I'm proud of that. We need to regionalize more services, frankly, not less. Thank you.
I think there were 2 questions, and they got intermingled earlier, which is there's a question of commuter rail and there's a question of the RTA. So the answer of commuter rail, I think you find different answers on it. But the question of the RTA is, of course, we should be regionalizing our approach to transportation planning. In fact, in 2003, when I first ran for the Madison City Council, I put that in my questionnaire for legal voters, that we should regionalize transportation planning. I grew up in Ohio where all transportation was regionalized, because how do you make decisions with the only transit being done inside the city of Madison? There are buses that go through Monona and Fitchburg right now and don't stop to pick up workers on the way to Madison. That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It's a workforce issue. It's a good planning issue. If we're going to make land use decisions at a regional level, we should make the transit decisions at a regional level. I put out an idea that said we should actually merge those into one component. So let's not let the idea of a commuter rail cloud the idea of what's good for this county. The regional transportation planning is good for this county.
Thank you. I support the RTA. As a member of the state legislature, I voted to create the RTA, legislation that allowed the county to move forward with creating an RTA. I would challenge the premise that the RTA is not accountable to the public. The proposal that the RTA board puts together will go before the voters, and the voters will decide. That's not as accountable as you can get, in my book. We need to go forward with a regional and balanced approach to transportation. It's the right thing to do, it's the time to do it, and I look forward to seeing the proposal and it coming forward so we can move ahead and stay in the 21st century when it comes to transportation. Thank you.
Well, I support the concept of an RTA. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think as the county executive, I think as 3 appointees to that board, I will make sure that they have a more regional base. But I will say one thing, there's going to be a referendum on the ballot in April relating to buses, trains, planes, automobiles, whatever it's going to be. We have a right to find out what it is pretty soon, because it's now the 16th of January, and a referendum that could add millions and millions of dollars of cost. The public has a right to see some sunshine on this. So if the RTA's got to get this out, and it better be good, or I won't support it.
Please speak to the county's management of the Yahara Lakes system, and with respect to the Wisconsin DNR findings of fact and conclusions of law and order, and how you will lead as an executive.
Well, I think the two things that make Dane County particularly special are the university and our lakes. They define our region. I think it's absolutely critical that we make sure that our lakes going forward are an asset and not a liability. One of the things we started working on is removing the phosphorus from our lake chain, not down the lake chain when it gets into the town of Dunn and further, but up north, up in Wanakee, where we can see the benefits flow throughout the entire water network. But one of the things that I want to really work on as county executive is to work with our farmers, our dairy farmers, and say, we want to help you make sure that your management practices divert 70% of the waste that causes the lake weeds and the algae, but not put them at a competitive disadvantage with other farmers in the region. So we'll work with them on their practices, help them with things like manure digesters that will remove phosphorus from the waste of the animals, and it can have a dramatic effect. And that's one of the things that I'm going to work hard on as county executive.
I've spent the last almost 4 years on the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission. Our charge is to protect the vital water resources of Dane County. I'm proud to do it. It's a volunteer basis, and I take it as part of my responsibility to this county. We talked about the phosphorus ban that was in fertilizers. True, the county did it. It was a good thing. City of Madison did it first. After we got to the table negotiating that, when the City of Madison tackled that issue first, to make sure that we worked with companies like Scott's and some of the fertilizer companies to make sure that even when they told us they couldn't produce fertilizer, that didn't have phosphorus in it, they found a way to make sure that it happened. Now you can go to any hardware store or home improvement store and find phosphorus-free fertilizer. At the Department of Commerce, we funded most of the energy projects. You see, like manure digesters, pelletizing of manure, and turn it into briquettes or pellets in order to be able to turn that into energy. So I think there are a lot of good best practices that are out there, and I'll continue to push those forward.
I grew up in Dane County, spending a lot of time on the lakes, a lot of time fishing with my dad, particularly on Lake Mendota. And the lakes have always been a challenge, the water quality. I'm committed to cleaning our lakes up, as has been County Executive Kathy Baldwin. I think she's making some great strides with the manure digesters, the Land and Water Legacy Fund. Moving forward, we have a great opportunity. Because of the phosphorus ban, which I voted for in the legislature, the DNR has promulgated rules that requiring that the Madison Metropolitan Sewerage District come up with strict reductions in phosphorus. Now, the opportunity that presents to us is we can help them, rather than having to try to filter it out at the plant, use that out in the field with manure digesters, planting strips of land and having buffers between waterways, and planting those with native grasses that we can then use as markets for our farmers to take those native grasses and use them in places like the Charter Street Power Plant that's going over to biomass. This is a challenge, but it's a great opportunity to protect our lakes, to preserve some land in productive ways, help our farmers, and increase the biomass and renewable energy that we use in Dane County. Thank you.
I don't disagree really with anything that has been said so far by esteemed opponents, but I couldn't help but think how this issue isn't just about, how much biomass you can make. We are sitting in a situation now where we have a new governor who plans on not letting that Charter Street plant use biomass. He's already said he wants to kill that project. We also have to look at the balance that you have to have between zoning issues, land use debates, and the rural way of life. I grew up out in the country. Some of the stuff I hear about how farmers are going to do practices, even at this table, is not how it really happens in the real world.
The lakes are the gems, the center of Dane County. Our waterways are incredibly important to us. In terms of the tourism industry and fishing, the lakes are one of our top producers. The problem is that we know that most of the runoff that goes into the lakes is due to agricultural runoff. I serve on the Land Conservation Committee. I know that we've been working very hard to find new ways of having farmers operate on their on the field so that they can reduce the amount of runoff into the lakes. There are different options available to us. But we need to go after the big problems. It's those that are polluting from agriculture, and it's the other municipalities, the city of Madison and other municipalities that dump a lot of stormwater into our lakes. I would not be afraid to take that challenge on. If we're serious about cleaning the lakes, we need someone that can work with, negotiate with all of the other units of government, bring the environmentalists in, and let's get our lakes cleaned up. They're really valuable to us.
Governor Walker's new pick for Secretary of Department of Health Services advocates that states drop Medicaid programs such as Badger Care. How might an action like this affect the county, and what do you see as the county exec's role in preventing such things?
This would be devastating for the county. The way that we provide our human services and the way we have our social service network established. One thing that any county executive can have to do, regardless of any of us who say this, is make sure that we protect the county. Whenever we're disadvantaged, whether we're under assault by the state government, we're going to have to make sure that we stand up and protect the county. And that can be done in such a way that you don't have to sacrifice collaboration on things that actually are going to be beneficial to our county, like job creation. And so, a lot of people come into office with really bad ideas, and somebody who comes with really good ideas. This is one of those really bad ideas, and I suspect that it will stay a bad idea until we go everywhere.
One of the things that a job like county executive has going for it, one of the responsibilities of a county executive is to use this position as a holy pulpit and to educate the public about bad choices being made by others, and in this case particularly Governor Scott Walker and the majority in the legislature. Badger Care is an extremely successful program that not only affords health care to people who otherwise would not have access to it, but it also saves the state money. It saves taxpayers money. So it's an opportunity to do the right thing and use our resources wisely. We need an exec who's going to stand up to Scott Walker and the Republicans in the legislature. We need an executive that understands not only county government, but state government inside and out. I believe I bring both those qualities to this job, which I believe is a vital skill set at this place and time, and I will certainly stand up for Dane County in the face of any onslaught against Badger Care.
I think it's important to note that I think it's Dennis Smith is the name of the individual that was brought in here, came from the Bush administration and one of those very nice, very conservative think tanks out of Washington. He was considered a star pick by the Walker administration because he has a reputation as trying to eliminate medical assistance and Medicaid. I fully expect that that's what they plan on doing here to try and balance the budget. I will fight them at every step of the way. Their top priority for me in this campaign is protection of human resources. And because, for a person who has Alzheimer's disease, someone who is profoundly disabled, somebody with mental illness, somebody without health care, if we've gotten so crass that we no longer are willing to take care of the safety net of society, shame on us. Shame on us.
I haven't seen all of the provisions that they're considering when it comes to this question. So I want to hold judgment. But the one thing I can tell you is that I can talk to Scott Walker. I can be an advocate for Dane County. I'm not trying to fight with him. I'm trying to get the best we can for the people of Dane County. And I believe I have a unique opportunity to be a good advocate as the county executive. And I served on the Health and Human Needs Committee for 6 years. I appreciate the work that the county does in caring for people, those that are most vulnerable. And I understand that we need to continue these things. I would be an advocate for all of us.
Well, unfortunately with Scott Walker, this is just the beginning, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Dropping kids from Badger Care is just step one. Funds that come to the county that help people with developmental disabilities, seniors who are living on the edge, people with mental illness, homeless, those are all under assault as well. And unfortunately, that is what we're looking at for the next couple of years. And I'm going to fight that every step of the way, just like some of my colleagues have mentioned, but how do you do that? And picking around Dane County often just scores you more points than the rest of the state. So you need someone, and I think I'm that person, who has relationships with other counties around the state. They care about their elderly and their poor too. I think the key to this is to bring Waukesha, Walworth, Ozaukee County into this fight with us, because they have as much at stake as we do. And that's going to be the effective way to push back on Scott Walker's agenda to balance this $3 billion budget on the back of the poor.
The right wing and many in the media have labeled anything funded with public tax dollars as socialism, presumably national parks, military, VA hospitals, fire departments, etc. All are socialist. What would you do to foster a more rational public dialogue?
I believe I'm known for someone who is always urged to take the rhetoric out of political discourse. It's time we deal with facts when we're discussing issues. We've seen too much, and particularly in the last few years, the rhetoric has escalated to a point that is so far beyond civility in some cases that we should be embarrassed for the people who are elevating to that level. The fact is, government provides vital services. When you dial 911 because you need a firefighter or a police officer or an ambulance, when it's snowing out and you need to get home from work and there's 6 inches of snow on the ground, I know that many people are going to say, boy, I hope that socialist snowplow driver doesn't come by and take care of the snow. We need to get past this rhetoric. It's not helping anyone. We may disagree on the level and the type of government services that are needed, but let's have that discussion. Let's have a civil debate, and let's move forward in a more civil manner.
I announced my candidacy for this job from the parlor of the State Assembly, which seems to be an odd place to be announcing a race for county office, but I did it for a reason. There is a war going on, literally, that has been created by a bunch of Washington think tanks on public employment. 6 months ago, you didn't hear public employees being trashed all the time. This is a coordinated effort that is going on. And I, for one, respect public employees. My mother was a public employee. My brother Mike is a public employee. I do not like what is happening to this debate. I talk to people that should know better. And all they talk about is those damn benefits and those darn salaries of all those public employees. Well, they're people. They're your neighbors. And most of those neighbors are getting pay cuts and benefit cuts. It's just that nobody seems to talk about that. I will defend the integrity and honor of these people. Somebody's got to.
I certainly agree about this statement about civility. We could all use a lot more politeness in our discourse. But I think the issue of public employees and the disproportionate benefits that are given to public employees over private employees may be at the root of this question. In the private sector, generally speaking, retirements funds are paid at 50%. Right now, public employees, not just in Wisconsin or Dane County, but pretty much nationally, public employees are getting 100% of their retirement benefits paid. Those kinds of inequities have to be looked at, especially in a climate where we have so much unemployment and employers are not able to provide substantial retirement benefits like we see in the public sector. Public sector jobs are paying equal to private sector jobs, but the benefits are greater. I think that socialism may be referred to something else, but I think in this regard that was around employment benefits for public employees.
Well, I blame a lot of this on the decline of our media. And I'll tell you, too many people are getting their news from Fox News or other single source news. And it's causing a lot of problems. I think there's a lot of intentional misleading of the public. And it's happened at a time when our local media, and I'm glad they're here tonight, but a lot of times they're absent. And that's because they've been losing money. That's because they've been under a lot of pressure as well. But when I first got on the county board 15 years ago, we had 2 reporters, 3 reporters at every meeting, and they would report what happened in the county. That doesn't happen anymore. And it's no wonder that people don't know the facts about what's going on in county government or even state government. It's similar there as well. But I would say that our state workers and our county workers in particular work very hard. I worked very hard to get that 4-year contract for our employees. We passed on a voice vote on the county board. That's how you work with your unions. You don't let it wait and wait and wait and have problems and then get overturned by Republicans in the Assembly and Senate as it's coming. That's what's going to happen next. So we need practical solutions to help everyone, including our county employees.
As we sit here celebrating the weekend of Martin Luther King Jr. and what he talked about, I think it's important that we remember what he talked about civility and about working together as an important statement. Feel crazy. We start off with that. One of the things that this isn't a new line of attack. It's just starting to resonate. That's the real question as to why is it resonating. And the reason it's resonating is because people are frustrated with their lot in life. People are frustrated with the way the economy is going. People are frustrated with lack of economic opportunities and lack of job creation. And that's why when I sit here before you, when I talk about job creation and economic development, I say it because it's something that we actually have to tackle and we have to get serious about. I sat at those negotiating tables with Harley Davidson and Mercury Marine when they were making decisions about leaving the state. And I heard the way that management talked to unions, which was you're part of the solution. Not that you're part of the problem, but you're part of the solution. We need your help to stay here. And that's the way you get things done. I watch it happen in the private sector. It's no different in the public sector. And that same line of reasoning and rationale should be what drives us in the negotiation.
Fiscal reality is it's going to cost a lot of money to convert energy sources and the like to renewable sources at this time. Truly, where the leadership needs to come, if we want to get away from our dependence on foreign oil, if we want to find a way to make energy more abundant and cheaper and cleaner, we need our federal government to start taking a much broader lead on this. Obviously, so many other things come into play, but if you want to have a true energy solution in America, it's got to be led by the federal government.
Joe, I agree. This is in what I might term not a county issue because there's little that we can do. What we can do is make sure that all of our buildings, our employees are aware of saving energy wherever we can. I don't think anybody wants to waste energy, but in terms of converting our current operations, the cost would be so prohibitive, and it would only take away from the human services that I think we all want and need to prioritize. This is a long-term shift in how things will be done. I'm a strong believer in technology. We've seen improvements over the years, but essentially it is not a problem that the county can solve. We can just take care of our own backyard, so to speak.
Well, I completely disagree with that. There's little that we can do actually in this front. You know, Scott Walker's approach, as was mentioned earlier, is to undo the renewable charter plan was going to be powered by renewable energy. That's unfortunate. That's clearly their direction. But locally, there are things we can do. There's other communities around the country, and I'm going to be introducing a clean energy revolving loan fund that other communities have done, which essentially means that you can use the equity in your own home to do renewable energy projects, be they renewable like solar or energy efficiency projects, and not have to come up with all the money up front. The county will front the money, it goes on your taxes, and then you pay it back as you get the savings from those improvements. So there's a lot we can do to reduce our reliance on foreign oil, on fossil fuel, and that's going to be one of my top priorities as county executive.
This is one of those questions where you wish you had more than a minute. $8 billion is what gets shipped out of Wisconsin every single year. We have no natural gas, we have no coal, we have no oil. We send $8 billion of our money outside of the county, outside of the state, to buy energy from somebody else. But we have some of the best agricultural land in the world to be able to grow things like switchgrass. We have plentiful trees and forests up north that create a renewable source for biomass. We also have a sand vein that runs right through the middle of the state. And that sand is low lead. And that low lead sand is the reason why Cardinal Glass is located here, why W Solar is located here, why 5N Plus is located here, all companies I have worked with and helped move here. And the reason for that is because they understand that there is manufacturing opportunity in Dane County. There is manufacturing opportunity in Wisconsin. We are the #1 manufacturing state in this country. If we turn around now and say that these new technologies, this advanced manufacturing is not part of our energy stream, part of our energy source, and we are sticking our heads in the sand, and we'll set ourselves back decades.
We can't wait for the federal government, and unfortunately now we can't depend on the state government. If you go on the websites of each of the candidates sitting here today, you'll see on my website that promoting clean energy jobs is one of my top priorities. Kathleen Falk has built a strong foundation for us to move forward with this. With her methane gas extractor from the county landfill, we're not only creating and using renewable energy, we're bringing in $3 million a year in revenue for the county. There are issues like performance contracting, for example, which means that a company will come in, we're doing this in the county and in businesses right now, they'll say, we guarantee you this much savings in energy consumption, and you can pay us back, we'll front you the money, you can pay us back with the money you save. So there are ways to do this right now. The county's doing it. We need to promote, coordinate, and create these kinds of good paying jobs in Dane County. We're missing the boat. China's way out ahead of us, other states are way out ahead of us. Clean energy jobs are practical, they're available, and they're going to be part of the solution to growing our economy in Dane County.
Should the sales tax be increased to solve budget deficits? And I'm going to presume this could apply to county or state.
What a sales tax does, it takes money out of the hands of people that earn the money. It takes it away from them and gives it to government to spend. And my contention is that individual citizens can make better decisions than with that money than giving it over to government unless there is a very, very specific purpose. I think it was in 1993, the county passed under Dick Wagner's leadership a half-cent sales tax that was supposed to be used for a jail and property tax relief. Well, we never built the full jail, and we've collected from the public $500 million now since that sales tax was implemented. When you take money out of the hands of the public and give it to the government, unless you have a very specific use for that money, we will never know what happens. I say that I do not want to see any increases in taxes. As I said before, we are taxed enough, we don't need any additional taxes.
Well, what I would say is I don't think the county does not need to raise an additional sales tax to pay off our deficits. We actually have a strong budget right now. I don't think that's necessary. But what is important and what I'm passionate about is growing the sales tax that we have now. And that means bringing in more business, more tourism. I've been on the Convention and Visitors Bureau now for several years. I'm a founding member of the Madison Area Sports Commission. And what we're trying to do is bring in more events like Ironman, like the transplant games, bike races, because those bring lots of people to Dane County who spend their money in restaurants and hotels, and that grows that revenue source for the county. And I think there are lots of weekends where we're crowded, where there's lots of events, as you all know. We have a Badger game, and there's a few other things. Arts Fair on the Square gets crowded. There's other weekends that are quiet, and we need to fill those in with events that will put people to work and help build our sales tax, and that's going to be one of the things I work hard on as county executive.
We should always be careful with sales tax. Sales tax is disproportionately towards the poor because they're forced to spend their money immediately. And so things that we tax and that's hurting the poor the most. We should be very cautious whenever we talk about increasing the sales tax. But the question was, should we do it to pay off deficits or not deficits? And the answer is absolutely not. That's about decisions. That's about making tough choices in your budget. That's not about looking for new ways just to fund the county. And so one of the things that we have to be very cautious of is how we balance our budget and how the taxation works. Scott McDonald is right that growing the economy, which I think I have the most experience in doing, and creating jobs is going to add property tax, it's going to add sales tax. And those things are going to help diversify and strengthen our economy, which will then lead to revenue, which then strengthens our budget position.
No, we do not need to raise the sales tax to balance our budget. The only sales tax increase that will be considered likely in the near to medium future would be an increase to fund the RTA. And that decision will be decided by the people of Dane County. We need to address our deficit twofold. We need to look at income. We need to look at ways of making our government work better. As county clerk, I streamlined government. I used technology to get more productivity out of the department. It's the same approach that I'll take as county executive, working with everyone at every level of county government, not only the managers, but the folks who work on the front end, the people with whom we contract, and the people to whom we provide services. Everybody has ideas for doing this better, and we're all in this together, and there can't be fighting back and forth. We need to come together, recognize that we have common challenges, and foster an environment in which ideas can flow up, not just down. So we can talk, we can work on problem solving together, and a sales tax to solve that problems is not an answer.
I don't know if it's an answer or not, but it's not legal. Dane County all counties are a creature of the state. It was the state that authorized a 0.5% sales tax about 20 years ago, and the county used it to pay for a jail, and I think Eileen's right, has been using it for other programs since. The state allowed for regional transit authority with the authority to raise up to a 0.5% sales tax. So this question is actually moot. What is important is that 63% of the county budget goes to human service programs for the person with disabilities, for the mentally ill, for the homeless, for people with Alzheimer's disease. Another 20% goes to the jail and for sheriff's deputies. That's where the money goes. The question which we can't answer today is we don't know what our partner at the state level, which is a huge partner in human services, is going to do. So we can't even yet tell you what that budget would look like. But as far as the sales tax goes, can't do it, illegal.
On a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being the highest, what priority do you give balancing the budget, and what steps would you follow to balance the budget?
Well, we have to balance the budget. We don't get to not balance the budget. So I guess my answer would be 10. But my approach is pretty simple. It's to look closely at county services and make sure they're being run efficiently. one of the things I'm really proud of, and I think differentiates me, is that we were facing a situation where we had 1,250 or 1,300 inmates in our county jail. We were shipping them around the county, and it was costing millions of dollars each year to do that. And the sheriff at the time, and actually Supervisor Russ, was voted for a major expansion of our jail to help deal with that problem. I opposed that. I said that there's got to be a smarter way. We reformed the criminal justice system. All we had to really do was get inmates in front of the judge quicker. And that's one of the things I worked hard on the last few years. Just by improving efficiencies in the court system, we've seen a dramatic drop in our inmate population. It's now down below 800. That's saving us millions of dollars each year. And it saved us having to build a $70 million jail when you count how operating that jail as well. So that's going to be my approach. That's something I'm proud of, and I want to continue those reforms to save money.
The budget watchdog in me would have said 10 regardless, even if we were allowed to not have a balanced budget, but we required to have a balanced budget, so it's a 10. So far, the only one who's putting out firm, concrete ideas in this campaign. If you go to my website, Exec for Jobs, you'll see that I put out 2 radical ideas. I promise to put 2 out every single month to talk about different things that we need to do in this county. The last radical idea that I put out was saying that we need to budget for innovation. That we need to make sure that we're doing budgeting that actually incents innovation and helps frontline workers and managers feel like they're going to be rewarded and given the opportunity to do something, to be able to do something differently. There's 2 ways of looking at fiscal responsibility. One way is to look at the outcomes and say, the end justifies all the needs. So I promise I won't raise taxes X. We hear that all the time from politicians. We'll say that's the limit, where I'll cut it off. But what we should be doing is looking at the systematic and structural things that are in the budget. So we shouldn't be borrowing for operating costs. We shouldn't be using one-time money to pay for ongoing expenses. We should make sure that we watch how we budget for borrowing for debt. If we look at those structural things and we budget for innovation, then we'll get to a place where we have a right-sized budget, a budget that people can afford to pay and can help provide services to counties.
Again, it's not if, it's how. How do we balance the budget in the face of declining revenues? We have to grow our economy, we have to create jobs, and we have to innovate. And we need someone who's willing to stand up for Dane County and promote Dane County and work with the people at the state capitol who are going to be making decisions that frankly are going to affect us in a big way. We have to stand up. We have to stand up to them, but at the same time we have to work for them. What I can tell you is budgeting is about priorities. And my priorities will be job creation. My priorities will be protecting the most vulnerable among us, people with mental illnesses, people with developmental disabilities, senior citizens. We have to have our priorities straight. We have to work together. A lot of people are going to feel the pain in the budget if there are big cuts. But what we have to do is work together to minimize that pain and make sure and certain that the most vulnerable among us are protected.
Well, there's going to be huge cuts. That's the reality. Governor Walker and the legislative leadership have said they're not going to raise taxes, for better or worse. They are not going to use accounting gimmicks, for better or worse. They're not going to do fund transfers, for better or worse. And they're likely to probably leave most of corrections alone because they're all tough on crime hawks. That leaves 4 real places in government to get the money. School aids, shared revenues, medical assistance, and the university. At the county level, I expect huge cuts in shared revenues, huge cuts in human service programs. That's why Dennis Smith was brought in here. And I expect a mill rate cap at either the current level or below. So what we're going to have to do is protect basic services. Here's my 3 priorities: human services, public safety, basic infrastructure. When I'm talking about basic infrastructure, I'm talking about potholes and mowing the grass at the parks. Because you can talk all you want about all these great ideas, but we're going to be really in trouble this coming year and the year after. And I think I've got the experience of a lifetime to be able to deal with those tough decisions.
As I said before, Wisconsin is the worst in the country when it comes to per capita debt. This didn't happen overnight. This has been going on for many years. And we're facing the music in this next budget. But the reason I got into this race was because I felt so very strongly that we couldn't have the kind of budget trickery that we've been having for the past several years. We're using revenues from buildings that we never sold to balance a budget, where we're using one-time funds to fill holes, only to leave us with a structural deficit at the county level that is a huge obstacle into getting a rainy day fund started, providing services. And now, as Joe said, I agree, we're facing revenue caps. We don't know exactly what the state is going to do yet, but I can assure you that I'm the best candidate at this table to work with the state to lessen the pain.
Thank you. We're going to have our closing statements now. Zach, you're online to go first, and we understand that you need to take on.
I appreciate the time and the organization it took to put this together. It's a great opportunity for us all to be able to sit here and to show us where we agree and where we clearly disagree, and also what our differences are. And I think this is going to, there's a lot of good people that are in this race. There are a lot of smart people with good backgrounds. But one thing you hear sort of universally in this is that job creation and budgeting is going to be a top priority. And it shouldn't surprise you, because in the last election cycle, that was the top priority in the nation and in the state. And when you look across the table, not the number of years, but an actual experience, and the level of accountability and the level of experience that we've all had, I rise up to the top. And the reason that is because I have managed hundreds of people. I have managed budgets that were hundreds of millions of dollars. I have started my own business. I have government experience and private sector business experience. I've signed the front of a paycheck, I've signed the back of a paycheck. Those are things that create a clear distinction between me and the candidate sitting before you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I think that our county is at a cusp of change, that we feel the slow slide that's occurring. I said before about family incomes and poverty. Those are all real things, but also if you look at the amount of free and reduced lunches that are occurring in our schools, there's an explosive growth that's going on there. If you look at the demand on human services, if you look at the unemployment line, there is a real change that's occurring in our county, and the way to stop that slide is to get into economic development in a real and meaningful way. The way to diversify the budget, to grow the budget, to provide better incomes, to create real opportunity for us is going to be through job creation. And I'm the best person to do it.
Thank you so much for coming today. It really means a lot to me to see people involved, especially when we have an early primary election, as I mentioned before. And I think that's a sign of what an important election this is. I'm where I'm at today because people who came before me invested in the resources that I needed in order to become successful. And as I said in my opening statement, today those resources are threatened. I want my children and your grandchildren to have access to the same opportunities that were available to me, because that's the American dream. We have a lot of challenges. I think we can come together and we can address those challenges. I think I have in the past. Our challenges include job creation, protecting the environment, providing human services. I've done all that, but don't take my word for it. When it comes to protecting the environment, the League of Conservation Voters has named me an environmental champion every single term I served in the legislature. I have a 100% pro-environmental voting record from the Sierra Club. When it comes to human services and protecting crime victims, I was named a legislative hero by the Wisconsin Coalition Against Domestic Violence for my work helping take care of survivors of domestic violence and bringing the perpetrators to justice. The State Counties Association named me an outstanding legislator and a friend of county government. So it's not, don't take my word for it. I invite you to look at my record, go to my website, talk to some of these groups with whom I've worked. I look forward to taking this experience to the county executive's office. We have challenges, but in those challenges are great opportunities, and I look forward to working with all of you as we move forward. Thank you again for coming today.
I too would like to thank the organizers of this event, especially for doing it this Sunday and not next Sunday. The Packers are going to be beating up on the Bears. That's going to be fun, folks. That's going to be fun. There's a very short window between now and the primary election. In fact, this is the first debate we've had, and the primary election is 30 days from today. That's not a lot of time. You will be electing effectively the CEO of Dane County. As I said in my opening statement, I bring nearly 40 years of public and private sector experience to this endeavor. I know I can make the tough decisions, and tough decisions are going to have to come. You can't sugarcoat a lot of the things that are going to be hitting all counties, all cities in this state in coming months, because the governor, to his credit, if he's not going to raise taxes, has limited choices. He has to cut back on those programs that will hurt the people of Dane County and other counties through human service programs, shared revenues, schooling. We haven't even talked about schools. And the University of Wisconsin, which is our crown jewel, they're all going to take some big whacks. Now, we can talk all we want about we're going to all create hundreds of thousands of good-paying jobs, and we're going to be the renewable energy leader in the country. But the reality is, what we're really going to be doing in the next 2 years, we're going to be battening down the hatches and trying to find every angle we can to protect what we've got. I'm an honest guy. I talk bluntly, but one thing you'll find from me, I will tell you the truth, at least as I see it. Thank you all for being here today.
I've been in a highly regulated business for the last 30 years. So when we talk about having a friendly business climate in Dane County, I know what we're talking about. That's one of the things that I bring to this, the county executive position, if I'm elected, would be to have a very real sense of what it is that businesses need. I have a great deal of respect for entrepreneurs and people who have the creativity to create something sometimes from nothing. We need an environment for them to thrive. And I am concerned that we are not going to have that unless we have someone that understands how the zoning ordinances, the political will works. Political will doesn't cost a lot, but it's something that I'm willing to exercise to make Dane County better. I believe in the people of Dane County. I think we need to listen to them. I think we need to hear what they're saying about taxes. I don't think we should be afraid to go to a referendum when the time comes to create something like the RTA that has tremendous powers with very little oversight. I care about what people of this county think. I care very much about the human services and what we're going to be able to deliver over the next few years. There are people in our county that have very creative ideas. I was fortunate enough to work with Noble Ray and the Gang and Narcotics Task Force to get young offenders, kids that were in gangs, essentially find them jobs, get them life coaching, and a private business was the one that hired them. We did this for no cost, and we provided services that we could not afford to do otherwise. We need some creativity, and I've got it. Thank you.
Well, I'll thank everyone for coming. I mean, these forums are really important. They're really a chance for people to see the differences between the candidates. I think one big difference for me is that I'm the only one here who's actually led county government. You don't have to wonder what I'm going to do or what my priorities are going to be. You can just look it up. I've consistently prioritized public safety, but also prioritized helping people who are the most vulnerable, the homeless, prioritized social workers to go make sure kids are gotten out of dangerous homes, made sure that we've expanded transportation for seniors so that they can stay in their homes and have in-home care. These are the things that I've already done. Negotiated long-term contracts for our county employees so that they know they'll have stable employment and they are protected in the storm that is going to come. So with me, you don't have to wonder. I've already done it. I know what the job entails, and it takes the risk out of it. And you can look up my record. There's no wondering what's going to happen. And I feel very passionately about county government and what it does, and I'm excited to continue to serve.
do have some closing remarks by Jim Latimer, speaking with passion. And the reason we asked Jim to do this is because he's passionate on the topic of citizens participating in their democracy.
Good afternoon, everybody. My closing remarks are to thank everybody for everything. Thanks to each of our candidates for coming and sharing insights and ideas today. Thanks to the organizers, Carlene and Becky and Barb Beatty. We certainly want to thank the State Bank of Cross Plains here in Oregon for this wonderful meeting room. And we thank all who came today because it shows that we care about things that matter, namely the informed voter choice. Please invite your neighbors and friends and families to become informed and involved and to vote at each opportunity. Anyone wishing to join the Oregon Area Progressives should contact Barb or Carlene. If you feel you need to hear more from the candidates, plan to attend forums in the coming weeks in Stoughton and in Madison. And I would just interject here, there is the Wisconsin Progressive Grassroots Festival that takes place Saturday, February 19th. You can get a copy of this before you leave. Carlene has them there at the back. So lastly, we thank all who were able to contribute to the Brooklyn, Oregon Food Pantry today. The best to you, and on with the afternoon.